Game 2.
Give the medley, the hole, he gets it in! 10-yard touchdown run! Josiah Medley and the Indians take the lead back at 16-13. Baby!
Round 3, baby. That's what we do. Here we come.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Indian Nation Station pregame show right here on the Indian Nation Station. I'm your host, the bald and beautiful AJ Ganger. With me, as always, the coach, Brian Gillespie. I always get you with those opening lines.
You are one creative guy.
Tonight, regional semifinals as the Piqua Indians will travel the short way to Wayne High School to take on the Cougars of Edgewood for the right to play in the regional finals next week. Brian, we're down to the final 16 teams in Division II.
I'll tell you what, it feels like 2006 a little more each day, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
You know, 16, you can't ask for much more than getting to the 16 and then having a chance at that final 8, and then, man, that golden ring down a couple weeks from now, man, that would feel good if we get there.
Man, it would feel amazing. But we got 4 games that we're taking it 1 week at a time, according to Coach Bill Neese. Let's look at the scores from round 2 of the playoffs. The 7th seed Winton Woods beating the 2 seed Kings 31-21. LaSalle beats Anderson 45-21. Edgewood beats Stebbins 52-15. Piqua, obviously, we beat Withrow 17-13. In Division 2, Tip City beats Alter 37-28. And Bellbrook beats Wapakoneta 42-35. Tip and Piqua still the only 2 teams and the MVL remaining in the playoffs, and Tip gets their rematch against Bellbrook. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Brian, Winton Woods beats Kings. That's a huge win for Winton Woods.
Yeah, Winton Woods jumped out big in that game, and Kings tried to make a comeback, but it just wasn't enough. So that's 2 years in a 2 years in a row where Winton Woods has knocked Kings out of the playoffs. Winton Woods, LaSalle game is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
LaSalle, even though the 6th seed was probably one of the favorites to come out of the region anyway, and they've pretty much, handled their first 2 opponents, including the 3rd seed Anderson by 24 last week. Winton Woods, they're going to have to play a great game to be in that one. But I think, heck, if they took care of Kings like they did, that's probably going to be a pretty tight game.
I agree with you 100%. LaSalle, being a 6th seed and then their record, they play a pretty tough schedule as it is, and they're just they're always going to be that 7-3 or 6-4 kind of team, but that's going to make a run in the playoffs.
Well, they're definitely battle tested more so than anybody in it, probably in the state. So they were ready to go, come in the playoffs, and I think that's their coach's whole plan from the start. We don't really care about our regular season record. We're going to have enough wins to get into the playoffs. We're going to be a 6, a 7, a 5, or a 4 seed. And once we get there, that's when the real meaningful games for them, at least, them being used to winning all these games, that's where their season starts, really.
Before we take a look at some stats from last week, I want to remind everyone again, tonight's game at Wayne High School between Piqua and Edgewood will be live on the Indian Nation Station's YouTube page. The link should already be posted with the hype video on the Indian Nation Station's Facebook, my Facebook, also my Twitter, and the Piqua Athletics Twitter page. So go on there. You can find the link for tonight's game. We will also be doing the live stream of the game we'll be hosting here on Saturday night between Mechanicsburg and Coldwater. That link as well should be posted on our page already. Well, Brian, last week's game, I hope your heart rate has come down from that 17-13 win of the Indians. I mean, we got up with 9 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in the game and still had to play defense for at least 2 to 3 more possessions.
It was a back-and-forth game. I mean, if you hadn't seen Withrow, which we hadn't seen them all year, they come in there, they passed the eye test, they were physical, they were big, maybe the biggest team in the state if you look at if you went size by athlete, I'd be hard-pressed to find a team below or D2 or below that has any kind of athletes like that.
And the way they were lining up after they figured out, well, this formation is going to work on offense, where you got that big number 99 in the middle running the ball like the fridge. We made some great adjustments at halftime to try to slow that down and to stop that, but it's still in that first half, that was a killer.
Yeah, they had grinded it out, and they probably, in my opinion, should have stuck with it, even though they didn't have as good a success early in the second half. And a lot of the reason that was is because Landon Hare, they made the mistake of continually running his way, and he had the half of his year this year. He had 7 tackles in the game, probably all 7 in the second half.
Yeah.
And he was doing a great job, lots of high energy, keeping that edge without letting them get outside, and forcing them back in where they could gang tackle that big guy, because that's about all they had a chance to, because that guy was bigger than our defensive tackles in most cases.
Yeah.
So Landon Hare, big kudos to him, as well as Sam Schmeezing. That duo really saved our water in that game.
Yeah, Lando 7 tackles and a sack, Sam Schmeezing with 5 tackles. It was pretty evenly matched, and when you think back, you had 2 really good offenses. But you also had 2 really good defenses. And when 2 really good defenses meet up against a really good offense, more times than not, the defense is going to win. And that's what we saw in this game.
It was a lot of back and forth. Both teams were kind of stymied. They couldn't get a lot going. And that's something, with a couple of the players on both teams, the Medley and then their running back, they were both very talented people. Now you're going to face really a similar challenge this week. Both teams with really rock-solid defenses. Both teams with offenses that can grind you out. Edgewood runs the wing T, and if you let them run it right down your throat, it's wing. You're gonna be facing a major challenge this week for sure.
And we'll get to that here in a little bit. Brian, any final thoughts on the Withrow game? I mean, that crowd, that was the loudest I think I've heard our crowd all season long.
Well, I'll tell you what. Piqua, although only won by a few, I think they proved something to themselves as well as proved something to the other people out there, because I think there were still people questioning, how good is this Piqua team? They only faced maybe one good opponent all year. How are they going to handle that? And they managed to overcome Withrow with a great catch by Josiah in the second half on that. He had to come back on the ball. Brady had to get the ball out as they were rushing him like crazy all night. I mean, he didn't have a lot of time to stand back there and pick anybody apart in that game.
No, he didn't.
Because they had fast guys coming off the edge, and he threw that thing up, and Josiah did his thing and came back to it, and the rest is history. A couple more touchdowns. He's got 33 on the year now. I mean, hard to lay out a value of Josiah Medley to this team. But, man, that was a tight one, but I think they did definitely prove themselves in that game. Now you're going to have to prove yourselves yet again to even more of a complete team in Edgewood.
Well, let's take a moment to thank our sponsors again for the 2021-2022 school year. Kathy Henney, Elite ETC, Dick Lumpkins, Morris Comfort Systems, Harmony Systems, Little Caesars, Edison State, Employ Bridge, Dr. Littlejohn, and Cray-X Corporation. Thank you for all your support. We got some big matchups in the regional semifinals, not only in Division 2, but also in Division 3 and 6 and 1. Some big games that we can talk about real quick here. Division 2, Region 8, Piqua taking on Edgewood. That game at Wayne High School again. 7 seed Winton Woods against 6 seed LaSalle at Lakota East. In Division 3, Region 12, we've got Baden taking on St. Mary's Memorial at Trotwood. The rematch of Week 1, Tip City and Bellbrook is taking on each other at Sydney. These games on Friday night. Division 6, Region 24, we host Mechanicsburg and Coldwater here on Saturday night. Allen East and Anna play at Wapak, the other regional semifinal there. I see we have some more written down. I know Taft plays Versailles. Springfield plays Findlay.
Eaton plays McNicholas. So there's going to be there's a lot of local teams that are going to be battling, but the two that probably are the closest to us or memorable to us would be Tip and Bellbrook. And again, Bellbrook got the best of them in Week 1 at Tip, I believe. And now I read an article where Tip's not treating that as a revenge game. They're just treating it as focus on one game at a time. What do we need to do to get this game this time? But there has to be a bit of them thinking, we want to get this one after that first week.
And it was a close game. It was like 24-14 or something like that, something really close. I think then they lose that one at home, you said.
Yes. That could go either way because both teams have to head north to Sydney, which is a bit different for Bellbrook. That's a bit of a trip there for Bellbrook to come up to Sydney. So that could really truly go either way in that one.
Again, we will be streaming Mechanicsburg and Coldwater. That game will have no commentary, just the two cameras set up for that game. Be on the lookout for that link on our Facebook page as well. Brian, we're going to get into tonight's game. It is, again, going to be live on the Indian Nation Station's YouTube page. It's time for the neutral site games. Piqua and Edgewood will travel to Wayne in the regional semifinals in Division 2, Region 8. Edgewood has won 9 straight games since their loss on September 3rd, 17-15 to Franklin. They've had a couple games get canceled this year as well. Piqua is on an 11-game winning streak, and we've been clicking all season long. On another note, this will be Edgewood's 3rd straight MVL opponent in the playoffs, and Piqua's 3rd straight opponent with a cat as their mascot.
That's some great research right there. Now, I will say, what you have to look at Edgewood is they come from a conference very different than the MVL. Their conference is run-based. Okay, so 99% of the teams in that league, including Ross, where Ratliff is now, those teams are heavy run, pass, once in a while type teams. So Edgewood's been grinding it out all year against teams that are used to facing a run-based team. So they are actually, in a lot of ways, a little bit like Piqua, and they like to run the ball. I mean, if Coach Neese had his way, and I'm sure that they would run the ball and never stop running it until you stopped them. So I think both teams, they've only met one other time. That last matchup was in the regional quarterfinals back in 2001. Indians shut them out 21-0. So I think you're looking at a program that has 15 appearances in playoffs. They're about 15-14 record. They have been a state runner-up. Okay, in 2003 they were state runner-up. So this is a pretty. They have a pretty good history. Now, keep in mind, Piqua started playing football in the 1890s, and Edgewood started playing in 1970. So definitely Piqua has been around a lot longer than Edgewood, but I think you're going to see Edgewood has 317 career, program wins, which is pretty good for a program only since 1970. So there's a lot of pride here, and they're going to run the ball like crazy. And it's going to be up to Piqua to figure out how to slow down this wing T run-based offense.
When you're watching the game, don't change the channel. Don't switch to another game because this game's going to fly by if Edgewood is on offense.
Yeah, if Piqua allows them to just grind out 8-6, 8-4, 3-6, and get first down after first down, that's what they want. I mean, they've got a junior fullback, number 34. If wing T, what you'll see is the fullback will line up right behind the quarterback.
Yeah.
And you'll have that offset, running back off to the left or maybe to the right sometimes. And you're going to be seeing number 34, 5'11", 220, a big boy right behind the quarterback. And if they can give it to him right up the middle and just gash you, they will. He has 1,114 yards rushing with 21 touchdowns, which is a pretty good number. Okay, and they have a second guy who's more of their speed guy. He's the running back, number 1, Jay Daly. He also has 1,000 yards, just over 1,000, with 18 touchdowns. So that's 39 touchdowns between two running backs. And then you throw in sophomore running back Braden Sullivan, who will line up in the slot. He'll get some of those type of handoffs where he's coming around. He's got 339 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that between those guys, 42 touchdowns rushing. And then he also has caught 21 passes for 652 yards and 6 touchdowns. So what you're going to see is run, run, run. And then when you fall asleep and you start sitting on the run, that's where they hit you with the pass, probably to number 32, Braden Sullivan.
And one of the keys about that wing T offense when you're on defense is you need to make sure you stay home and watch where the ball is going.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, that's all we need to do on
hold tight, eye discipline. They're going to do a little, they're going to fake. Sometimes they'll fake to the fullback hand, and then they'll do some trap running plays. So you have to stay in your lane, and you have to be a solid tackler.
Now, when we're on offense, I was talking to some of the kids this week, and it seems like they know what they have to do, and that is go out there and score every time they're on offense. Because, their defense, like we've said, we could be on the field for a long time, especially with this 40-second play clock that we have.
Yes.
So what is Edgewood looking like on defense?
Well, the challenge is, since week 2, no opponent has scored more than 14 points against Edgewood. So now that could tell you a couple different things. One of which is opponents don't get the ball very much.
Yeah.
So if they, like you said, they're gonna. The problem or the challenge is for Piqua is don't feel so much stress to score every time. You want to keep the ball as much as possible. You want to get points, obviously, but you also have to. You can't try to be perfect, because when you try to be perfect, you know what happens.
Yeah.
You make a dumb mistake because I'm trying to be perfect. I think you have to try to run the ball. Josiah's got to get a lot of touches, but as you've noticed, first 2 weeks, both teams in the first 2 weeks have really kind of made it difficult for Josiah to run the ball. So what has happened? Now he's getting touches through the air. Okay, I think that the goal for Troy Uhl has to be, how can we get Josiah the ball as many possible times? How do we get him the ball? Whether it be a little, screen pass, whether it be a swing pass, whether it be, hey, draw play, mix it up, because I think that they're going to, as the first 2 rounds, they're going to think, okay, well, if we can shut down Medley, then we got a shot. So they're going to be looking at him as a running back. But he's not a bad pass catcher, as we've seen.
Yeah.
They just haven't had to use him in that way very often.
No, they haven't. And you also, when you're talking about that, you still have Brady Uhl. Yeah, Brady didn't play the greatest last week, but you still got Brady and those receivers on the outside to worry about.
Well, I think what I do think is, I don't think Edgewood has as high level of athletes as Withrow did. You're not going to find, they have very good athletes.
Right.
But pure athleticism and coming off the edge, I don't think Edgewood has those type of players. They have good players. They have good, solid players with good stats. They have a huge linebacker named Radical. What a name. Yeah. Is there a better name than Radical Rothermall? He leads the defense with 86 tackles, and he's huge, 6'1", 260, linebacker number 54. Keep an eye out for him. He's going to be in the middle, and he's going to be hitting some people hard. But you have to understand that they're not the speed coming off the edge like you saw with Withrow. So I think there will be some passing opportunities here. It's how you execute in the passing game will be the key. And one thing to note here is we are not, the kicking game's about even for this game. And that's pretty rare for us this year. Yeah. They have a kicker named David Rumpler who has hit 56 of 59 PATs, and he's hit 3 or 4 field goals this year, including a 45-yarder. So, you've got kind of a kicking game on both sides there with Trombo, that we're pretty even. So this is more than likely going to be a very tight game.
Here's the big question, Brian. We win the coin toss. Do we get the ball, or do we defer and go on defense?
I think you go on defense, just because you always want that ball out in the second half first. Yeah. At least in my opinion. I know you may say, well, let's go on offense so we can send a message and put pressure on there. And that would be good, but I think it feels good when you come out of that half and you have an opportunity, whether you're winning or losing on offense. So if I'm calling it, I'm saying I'm gonna give them the ball. We'll defer to the second half. Now, the risk there is, they get the ball and they just grind you out for a touchdown over 6 or 7 minutes, and now you're behind 7-0. But again, you get that additional opportunity in the second half. So.
Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you all season long for watching the Indian Nation Station pregame show. Reminder, tonight's game is live. We will be on the air around 6:35, 6:40 p.m. on our YouTube channel. The link is out there again on social media for everybody. It was posted with the hype video earlier this morning. Pay attention to our social media accounts. If the Indians are to pull this game off, we are going to start getting bumped out of these games the further we go into the playoffs. So just pay attention to our social media accounts for information regarding any coverage of future games the more we move along. I do know once we hit the state semifinals, we're pretty much done.
Yeah, I mean that's probably even the regional finals will be a hard one to get because you're going to have other TV providers going to be involved in that. But it's been a heck of a season. It's been a lot of fun. This one is going to be a barn burner.
It will be a barn burner. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell, and get notified every time we post a new video or go live on our channel. Stay tuned for the game coming up in just a little bit with Tom Michaels and the coach Brian Gillespie on the call. For Brian, I'm AJ Ganger saying good night, ladies and gentlemen. Go Piqua and beat Edgewood.